This is episode 1113.
And so as we think about AI and how it impacts our business, how it impacts our customers, very importantly, and the efficiency gains that they're going to get and the way our products can enable them as well, you think about, obviously, the office of the CFO. I think initially when AI came in, it was much more around the development side of things. It was much more around the support side of things. And it's really starting to find its way into the office of the CFO. Right now, it's very much within the legal side of things, redlining and so on and so forth. It's very black and white. We can use these agentic agents such as Replit and Claude and all those types of softwares. Within accounting and finance, I still think there is market opportunity there. Those are products like ours, what we can bring to the table. I think CFOs inherently are probably a little bit of a control freak by nature, particularly when it's data out of our ERP, out of our budgeting and planning tool. I think we're all quite hesitant to have there be any risk of hallucinations or anything like that. And so I think there is still work to do in terms of how far AI kind of brings itself into the office of the CFO. We are doing everything in our power to really try to be on the leading edge of that.
When Josh Schauer joined Longview, a Toronto-based software company, he had no idea the most transformative chapter for his career was about to get underway. In 2020, Longview was acquired by insightsoftware, a turning point that brought both uncertainty and opportunity. It's the kind of equal parts fear and optimism, Schauer tells us. Schauer isn't alone. Over time, we've had many finance leaders share with us their job-hopping maneuvers that came in the wake of a recent acquisition. However, Schauer didn't hop. He leaned in, rising to become CFO of insightsoftware, while advancing a playbook rich with AI and M&A strategy. You'll hear about that playbook and much more on today's episode. Our talk with Josh Schauer begins after this.
When it comes to company spend, most finance teams are on defense, reacting to surprise spend, chasing receipts, saying no. But there's a better way. Meet Brex, the AI-powered spend platform that boosts a company's control, earnings, and speed. 99% of customer spend is compliant. 11 million hours saved on expenses and accounting through automation. $681 million plus back to customers in business building rewards. Make every dollar count with Brex.
Hello, we're speaking with Josh Schauer, CFO of insightsoftware. Josh, welcome.
Yes, thank you for having me, Jack. Excited to be here.
So, Josh, take us back. Where does this trail begin? Who were you way back when? Tell us something about yourself and the experiences you feel prepared you become a CFO.
Yeah, excited to. So very quickly, personal front, Midwestern kid, born and raised, very rural Wisconsin, far more cattle than people. That's my background. That's my upbringing. Went to school at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, moved home back to rural Wisconsin and quickly realized I wanted to be around business and be around people and, not dairy farms everywhere. And that led me to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and that's where I reside today. So, what I did at that time was I had applied for several jobs, within the finance industry, and worth noting, I didn't grow up with a passion for finance or a passion for accounting, nor did I know that my career was going to lead me here. I was always good at math. I was good with numbers. I liked word problems. I liked problem solving. And ultimately, just going through the first couple of years of college, that was what pushed me the direction of finance. And it's been a very fulfilling career. When I applied for jobs in Minneapolis, Minnesota, I applied for 4 of them. I was very fortunate enough to get 4 offers from them. And my recruiter at the time, through Robert Half, told me, I think you will get the most fulfillment out of getting in a software company that was private equity backed. And that was really the start of my venture in the last sort of 12 years of my career, which has been software companies that are private equity backed, that are highly acquisitive, highly strategic, and move very quickly. And that's what I've found really fulfilling about finance in general and about these roles, is that you do get to go in and play a very strategic kind of partner to the business. I think a lot of people have this maybe perception or misconception about finance that You go into a closet and you take some numbers and they come out with other numbers, and that's all you do. But rather, I think of it as very much a strategic operating partner to the organization. In fact, I think where a lot of CFOs are going is much more in kind of the COO, CFO hybrid, because it's a lot more than just numbers, and it's very, very strategic. Back to my career real quick. So I was in Minneapolis, Minnesota at a company that it was called Verisay, private equity backed. We did a few acquisitions there, and we were then sold to a company out of Austin, Texas called Accruent. And that was, again, my first experience in the sort of buying companies and selling companies, which is now where I've been for quite some time. One of the really kind of foundational aspects of my career, one of the cornerstones of my career when I began at Verisay, and something that I think isn't talked about enough, is when you've been fortunate enough to reach certain levels of success, there's a lot of luck involved. And my first real element of luck was being hired by and working for a CFO at that company. That was a fantastic mentor to me. And I think with almost everyone that gets to a C-level position, they're going to have those people in their career. And so it went from, applying for 4 jobs without really a direction as to where I wanted to go, like industry-wise, and being sort of pushed into this direction, hired by a CFO that took me under his wing, and then really just allowed me to be the finance partner to the business and wear all of the different hats. So it was about a $40 million company, did all of the budgeting and planning, all of the reporting to our boards, all of the internal reporting, all of the strategic analysis, the dashboarding, et cetera, et cetera. And it was just a fantastic foundation for helping build my career. When we were then sold to the company out of Austin, Texas called Accruent, that was a company. There are a lot of parallels between Accruent and Insight Software, a lot of M&A, so much so that the chairman of our board, the former chairman of our board, was the founder of Accruent. So it gets very small world very quickly. A lot of M&A, a lot of fast-paced rigor, a lot of the need for being very analytical and critical, providing a lot of critical thought along the way. I think there's a lot of people within finance that can establish numbers, that can pull KPIs, but really being able to provide critical thought along the way is kind of that missing ingredient to the really successful people within business. So that was a very, it was only a year, but it was a really critical juncture in my career. From there, I moved to a software company out of Toronto. That company called Longview was then acquired by Insight Software. And so that was about 5.5 years ago. So it's about 12 years of nothing but private equity backed, fast paced software M&A. And in my time here at Insight Software, we've done, 25 acquisitions, I think 31 in total at Insight Software, where I was leading the finance team up until about 9-10 months ago. And then I've assumed the CFO role. So I know that's a lot in a very short time period, but that's my career in a nutshell.
Yeah, just a wonderful overview for us. I found it interesting when you talked about that recruiter who very early in your career pointed you into the private equity-backed company sector. It wouldn't have been for every junior professional, Why do you think you were up for it? Did they make it sound exciting? They're going to grow through acquisition. You can be part of this?
Yeah, they made it sound like a challenge. So a lot of the other roles, you can have your range of accounting and finance professions, and you can have many that you go in and you clock in at 8 and you clock out at 4, and you know exactly what you're going to get, and that's great for a lot of people. That wasn't what I wanted. I was single. I was moving to a city. I wanted to grow my career really quickly, and that was the reason he pushed me that direction, along with the fact that he knew the CFO, who was the hiring manager, and he thought that we would get along, and he was very, very correct. I mean, ultimately, I kind of owe everything to him for his foresight and saying, I think this is going to be the best move for your career. And I actually took less, which at the time was a big deal. You're fresh out of school. I actually took less to accept that offer from him.
Just would love to get a better sense of, looking back to 2020 when Insight Software acquires Longview, what were your initial thoughts as a senior finance executive inside the acquired company? Did it feel like a leap into uncertainty, or already you saw an opening for something maybe bigger?
Yeah, no, it's definitely the former. We do a lot of M&A, and I think you can become numb to some things when you're on the buy side, but I've now been through the sell side of things 3 times, and that's a very different experience. It's always uneasy. I mean, it kind of by nature and by default, it's uneasy, particularly in the private equity software landscape where synergies are realized and that oftentimes come from the G&A function. You don't need 32 CFOs to run our business, right? Even though we've done that many acquisitions. So it's kind of equal parts fear and optimism. Like, of course, you're on the concern side of like, am I going to have a job coming out of this? But you're also quite optimistic and excited about the opportunities that could lie ahead with a much bigger company. And that was, what it ended up being. Again, at Longview, incredible CFO, fantastic, ability to look out for me, put me in a position where she's like, hey, I've made it clear, like, they can't lose you. Like, they will do whatever they can to retain you. And so it takes a little bit of the fear side of it away. But it was ultimately a great, great opportunity. I do think there was most of the excitement lied. I've really only been a part of, at least intimately a part of, kind of what I would call small companies, $30 to $50 million companies. So there was both fear and excitement with going to a much larger company. What is that going to mean? Am I going to get siloed? Am I going to be able to report to the CFO the way that I had? Am I going to be able to drive value and feel like I'm making a difference the way that I had? So it's a lot of emotions. It very quickly, though, my concerns were put at ease, and it was the pendulum swung to the opportunistic side of things.
Yeah, I want to just point out that you step into the CFO office at Insight Software this past January. So roughly a 5-year investment on your part, I believe. And, we have to, during that journey, was there ever a moment that the risk of being absorbed and not fitting in, did it ever feel especially real or never?
Within the first couple of months, maybe. Again, well, being fortunate, I've just been so fortunate to have great CFOs everywhere I went. And my predecessor, David Woodworth, who was here, he and I are, he's left. We're still friends. We'll be friends forever. He visited Toronto when we were acquired. We met in person right away, and he really tried to put my mind at ease and say, hey, you're the kind of person I'm looking for, and all these kinds of things. So I wasn't really particularly concerned. It was definitely a different culture. It's a little, I don't know, I wouldn't say slower paced, a little more of a lifestyle company at Longview, and then it was very intense at Insight Software. And so there was that cultural change. But no, I was pretty fortunate to, over the course of the 5 years, to know what my role was, like how I fit into the puzzle, and the value that I was bringing to the table.
Well, you supplied some really nice details for us, Josh. So thank you for that. Again, we've seen many times where it's just a sort of one of the rungs on a CFO's upward climb where they get acquired and you see they move on. You didn't. You invested 5 more years there and you enter the CFO office. So it's nice to see the outcome people hope for. Let's find out about Insight Software today. I mean, clearly it's been very acquisitive over time. This is pretty hard to do at times. But tell us about this company today. What does it represent? Who is Insight Software?
Yeah. So I'm perhaps uniquely positioned as the CFO of a company that sells products for CFOs to speak to it. But ultimately what Insight Software is it's a comprehensive provider of AI-powered solutions. And so what that means is, obviously we've got a lot of products. We've been highly acquisitive, but we range from tools that are going to do reporting and analysis, budgeting and planning, tax, transfer pricing, close consolidation, lease management, data and analytics. The vision is that we bring to the table basically a cohesive package of products for the CFO on one unified platform to be able to say, hey, you've got access to one unified platform, one user interface, one single sign-on, and we can do everything for you. Right, you don't need to go anywhere else. All of your data is connected, which is really the most powerful component of this. As we talk about AI, as we talk about agility, as we talk about flexibility, everything that CFOs require, it all comes down to data, right? Having all of your data connected with one another and in one shared location, that is really the unique power and benefit of Insight Software. Again, I'm in a position where I'm the end user of the vast majority of our products, right? And you may have tax specialists and you may have facilities managers that handle the leases, et cetera, but ultimately most of those report up through G&A. We're now obviously taking a pretty significant look at how our products can be powered by AI. It's a really, really critical, fast-moving element to things. How can we create agentic assistance for FP&A? How can we create different ways to analyze and interpret data through AI trending and mapping and so on and so forth? And so we're really excited about the future, and I'm uniquely positioned, probably for the only time in my career, to be a spokesperson for products that we utilize as well.
Yeah, very interesting. Your timing there, as well as your timing landing at Insight Software, because, okay, the generative AI chat only arrived, I guess, 3 years ago now, but it was on your watch or your tenure with the company as you grew into the role. Can you tell us something about that? I mean, we can go back to when the cloud was being born. And it was interesting how many finance leaders began to step up and talk about sort of the economics behind why cloud software was something to take a look at, not just a risk. AI is similar in a sense, and we have more finance leaders than ever, I think, really diving into some of the technologies to better understand and how they become strategic. Can you relate to this? Is this, as you talked about that chapter you're opening up, can you share with us reflect a little on AI and how it's going to help you open that chapter?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think going back to how CFOs, certainly over the last 5 years, post-COVID, have become much more involved in the strategic aspect of the business. AI is a very strategic aspect, transformational component of what is next in line in business. In fact, it's happening already. And so as we think about AI and how it impacts our business, how it impacts our customers, very importantly, and the efficiency gains that they're going to get and the way our products can enable them as well, you think about, obviously, the office of the CFO. I think initially when AI came in, it was much more around the development side of things. It was much more around the support side of things, and it's really starting to find its way into the office of the CFO. Right now, it's very much within the legal side of things, redlining, and so on and so forth. It's very black and white. We can use these agentic agents such as Replit and Claude and all those types of softwares. Within accounting and finance, I still think there is market opportunity there. Those are products like ours, what we can bring to the table. I think CFOs inherently are probably a little bit of a control freak by nature, particularly when it's data out of our ERP, out of our budgeting and planning tool. I think we're all quite hesitant to have there be any risk of hallucinations or anything like that. And so I think there is still work to do in terms of how far AI, kind of brings itself into the office of the CFO. We are doing everything in our power to really try to be on the leading edge of that. I think it's going to happen. AI is happening. It is going to happen. And so while there still remain a lot of question marks, you don't want to be a laggard in terms of your adoption, in terms of your execution, in terms of the efficiency gains. And then, of course, there's the whole aspect with regards to what are you doing for your customers? Well, how are you layering it into your product? Again, every tool in this market is going to be AI powered. It's going to be AI based, AI founded. It's going to be on an AI engine, AI platform. And so you need to make sure that you're keeping up with that. We've invested a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of dollars into making sure that we're on that front edge.
Tell us a little bit about maybe, I don't know if there are cultural challenges or changes, cultural changes that you've made or operational changes as you look to introduce and have your finance team embrace AI-powered tools? Are there certain changes you needed to make?
Yeah. So from our perspective, yes, it's absolutely a culture that you have to cultivate. It's not, if I speak more broadly, the whole company has to do it. Otherwise, it'll become very kind of fragmented, and you'll have pockets of, boy, they're getting great usage out of it over there, and they haven't even heard of it over here. And so we've really taken the mentality of kind of top down from our CEO down. We are an AI-first organization. We've rolled out licenses for everyone in the business. We've got trainings. We've got seminars. We've got kind of AI czars and liaisons. And so it really is a company-wide culture that I think you have to establish. Within the office of the CFO, a few of the things that we've done within our accounting, our integration, and our finance area is we've essentially appointed kind of experts, right? And they are the ones who are inherently good and excited. They're good at it. They're excited by it. They're motivated by it. And quite frankly, they've been doing it for a couple years, ever since it's been new and it's been exciting. And so they've got training sessions where they're saying, hey, here's the new thing we're doing. Here's how it can improve your quality of life. And so it very much has to become a culture. It has to become like all in, or it'll become a bit of a fad, or someone will forget how to utilize it. And by then, these companies that really have embraced it will be passing you by in terms of their efficiency.
Now, can you share with us your thinking, or I don't know if you're developing new ROI models to help you better evaluate some of these AI initiatives within your products? What would you share with us about those investments and the ROI behind them?
Yeah, so it's kind of a fascinating question because ROI, as it pertains to AI, can be quite difficult. In fact, right? And for CFOs like me, that's actually one of the challenges. We like numbers, and we like to say, hey, if I'm going to put $1 million in, I'm going to get $2 million out. Funny enough, we use AI to build ROI calculators for our tools. That's one of the first bit of value that we got, which is something that used to be quite difficult to quantify for customers, which is, yes, our tool's $40,000. You're going to save $200,000. Kind of ironically, that's one of the first things that we did. There's a bit of a leap of faith with AI that I think you have to take, which is that you know that by spending money on these different dev tools and things, you're going to gain efficiency. And the teams are going to gain efficiency. And you want to be able to say, hey, we're going to be 30% more efficient. We're going to be 40% more efficient. And in some ways, you can calculate that. Like in support, you've got ticket deflection, cases that are deflected where we used to have a body doing that, and now AI is doing that. And you can put dollars to that. But there is an element of not trying to wait until everything can be perfectly quantified and you've got some ROI calculator that's going to give you a perfect assessment, because you have to just take a leap and know that while I might not be able to validate it and prove it in real time, this is by far in the best interest of the business. And so in that way, we don't have specific ROI calculators, but we certainly have improved efficiency and improved KPIs and metrics that then inherently are obviously a return on that investment.
Do you, curious if you feel as if you've played an active role here as Insight looked to embed AI across its platforms. Was the CFO involved in prioritizing, the investment, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, fortunate just based on the products that we sell, that I've got kind of a unique perspective that I might not have if we sold widgets that I wasn't involved in, as an example. But yes, absolutely. They solicit my feedback. They solicit the feedback of my team, my chief accounting officer, my head of finance, my director of tax and treasury, et cetera, because we've got those kind of champions in-house to be able to prioritize, to talk about roadmap, to talk about AI initiatives that we think would land. Hey, would this resonate with you? Those types of conversations are happening all the time.
Curious as to how your FP&A team, whether and again, you're someone who was, an FP&A, a senior FP&A executive, I think, at Longview. Are you doing FP&A a little differently over your 5-year climb?
Yeah.
Did that organization change? Did that team's priorities change? Was it done differently?
Yeah, I'm very biased because that was my team 9 months ago, in terms of what we were able to do. But yeah, look, we take a lot of pride in what our FP&A team does. Like, first and foremost, we do what we call Agile forecasting, which is quite unique. And what that means is every single day we've got an updated forecast. And so a lot of businesses might forecast monthly, quarterly, semi-annually is not abnormal. Every single day we're updating our forecast. We've got new hires, we've got terms, we've got contracts being signed, both with regards to customers and vendors, et cetera. And then at the end of every week, we are sending a forecast to our board with qualitative assessment as to here's what changed. So we've got a very kind of robust forecasting process. In terms of, the market the last 5 years, it was quite a roller coaster, starting with COVID and interest rates and inflation and the Great Resignation and all of these different things that made it difficult to be an operating partner at a business. And so the idea of agility and predictability just ramped up, right? Cash management was really, really critical, especially for highly acquisitive companies that have debt. Interest rates skyrocket, and oh boy, can you service your debt? So all of those types of questions from sponsors, from lenders really increased. We were in a pretty good position because we do agile forecasting. We didn't have to take 90 days to go and learn our business. And so because of that, we were on the front end of being able to raise increased revolver, being able to hedge our interest rates and do those types of very predictive, proactive engagements for the business. So our FP&A team, they pride themselves on at any point in time being able to say, here's where we are today based on the activity of yesterday. Here's where we're going to be next week. Here's where we're going to be next year. And here's where we're going to be 5 years from now.
Can you tell us something about agile forecasting and how, it offered broader visibility into the business for just the finance team, just the FP&A team, or even broader?
Oh yeah, it's much more broad than that. So the agile forecasting takes place across the whole organization, right? So it's every function. Our COO may be wanting to make headcount decisions to change his hierarchy, change his organization. We partner there, and then we layer that into the forecast. And so it allows all of our executives really to not have to worry about the dollars and cents of their budgets or their forecasts, because we've got operating partners, finance partners that do that with them and do that for them, and they can focus on their value add drivers, right? And so we've got our CMO focused on pipeline creation and brand awareness. We've got our COO focused on win rates and execution and closing deals and so on and so forth. So it's much more broad than just within the office of the CFO. Beyond that, it allows our board to at any point in time know exactly where we are, so they can run value creation plans, so they can think through M&A and think through big picture things. So it is very much a culture that we've created. It's not unique just to Insight Software, but not many companies do it because there's a burden that it creates. It's not easy to do, and not many functions are equipped for it. Across, if you look at many businesses, it takes great rigor, it takes great discipline, and it's not easy, right? It's quite difficult, but it does afford you that visibility and that transparency into your business.
As Insight Software continues to grow through acquisition, it would seem to me, those organizations that are being acquired have to come into this world of agile forecasting. Can you tell us something about how they are able to do that? Is there some SWAT team that you send in to help change the mindset and help them understand better?
Yeah. So of the things that we do well at Insight Software, we do acquisitions and integrations very well because we've done a lot of them. And so, for better or worse, for the first 10 or 15 acquisitions I did here, we had our finance leader, both in terms of like the back end FP&A leader, was also our front end diligence leader. And so basically what we did was create a process that as we were going through an acquisition and we were running diligence and we were establishing a QOE, we were already taking all of their information from the data room and putting it into a format that then basically allowed us to do the agile forecasting on the back end. And it was never perfect, and there were always some question marks and things. But essentially from day one of acquiring that company, if you acquire that company on July 1st, then on July 1st, you are in a position to have their data in an agile forecasting manner across your portfolio. Systems might be different because it might take 30, 60, 90 days to get the systems integrated. But we've got pretty great rigor around day one being able to look at that business the same way we look at the rest of Insight Software.
You've been involved in M&A now for probably a decade. I'm just curious, as the technologies have advanced, as the data becomes cleaner perhaps, and visibility becomes more closer to real time for different parts of the company altogether. What's changed about M&A? Is it any easier? We know that it can be awfully challenging.
Yeah. It's actually a bit funny because what's changed the most is the abundance of data that we didn't used to have. And so, in periods in the past, you would be doing acquisitions with quite limited data, and sometimes that was good and sometimes that was bad. In some cases, it feels like the company that was selling might not have known certain things about their own business, and you were discovering them after the fact. Sometimes they were very good and you just got great value. Sometimes they were, not so good, and then you were having to inherit that debt. Now it's such an overload of data because of, again, the last 5 years and the requirement for everyone to be on top of their cash. The ARR snowball is something that CFOs struggle with all the time, and that used to be something that was really difficult to get when you did M&A, and now it comes like ready-made. It's one of the first things you get a customer queue, it comes right away. And so you've got this sort of overabundance of data, and I think what you find yourself having to do is convince yourself of ways to buy companies as opposed to not buy companies, because historically you had limited data. And you'd have to say, okay, are we missing something? Or do we have blind spots here? Is there something that's high risk that we don't have data to? Now you've got all the data, and in many cases there are going to be red flags, and you have to say, okay, do we still want to acquire this company despite these few areas? And so kind of the tone of what we discuss has changed a bit towards convincing ourselves that we actually should acquire this company because the risk is not greater than the opportunity, and it used to be the inverse of that. So it's changed quite significantly.
should we expect any change in your acquisitive ways over the next year or two? Or is it going to be business as usual? We're going to be looking and we'll be growing through acquisition as we have over the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's very much business as usual. We're always looking. The market has changed. It's not necessarily an easy time to be buying companies or selling companies at this point in time, and there's not a lot of activity. So because of the market dynamics, just the number of acquisitions that we're doing is down, but there's no change in terms of our value creation proposition through M&A, in terms of our ability to find products that strategically enable our portfolio or fill in gaps within our portfolio, et cetera. So it's still much more the same. There's no pause on M&A at Insight Software.
AI-related driven acquisitions, companies that have made certain advances in the use of AI or how they embed it or just how they think about it, and you want to inject that gene into the Insight Software ecosystem. I mean, are you likely to be attracted to those types of companies?
Yeah, absolutely. If you can't build it out internally, then you're going to be looking to buy it. And AI has very much changed the landscape of M&A for a few reasons. And the first of which is you need to be asking yourself, the product that you're acquiring, can it be replaced by AI, right? How much of it is at risk because of AI? That's one of the questions you have to be asking yourselves. The other one is, can we build this with AI? That's another question you have to be asking yourselves because of the tools like Replit and Lovable and the different engineering and development tools. And then the third question you have to be asking yourselves, even if it is an AI forward or AI powered or driven solution, is, was this built by AI and was it built in a weekend? Because AI can do so many remarkable things like this. Is this a real product, or is this something that over the course of 3 weeks was spun up? It looks and feels great, but as we start to get under the covers, we're going to say, oh, I don't even think engineers built this, and so there's several questions, and it's really changed the way that our corp dev team looks at opportunities.
That's really interesting. We haven't had that shared with us before, but we have to believe that's a fact. That is actually what we're seeing a lot of today, I think. Well, that's great. We appreciate that, Josh. We're up to what we like to refer to as our finance strategic moment question. We're asking you just to go back in time and share with us just one moment of insight. We know you've had many of these along the way. What comes to mind when we ask for a finance strategic moment?
Yeah, there's a lot of them, first off. And I know we've talked about going through M&A, the process of diligence and then finding deals and finding reasons why it didn't work out. And we've done that a lot, and that's strategic and that's fun. I think what's again unique about finance, and particularly the evolution of finance, is this strategic nature of not being just within the office of the CFO, but being a business partner, being a chief operating officer, or at least partnering with your chief operating officer, your chief executive officer. One of the big changes we made at Insight Software, which I was involved in as well as my predecessor, was as we've acquired all of these companies, and we really tried hard, and we continue to try hard not to be a house of brands, but a branded house rather, is, okay, we've got all of these different products, and we need to sit down and we need to understand, like, who are we? Right. And so 3 years ago, we really looked down and said, who are we and who do we want to be? And my CFO and I, amongst others, other leadership, we really changed the way that Insight Software positions itself in terms of we've created these vertical construct, these business units within our organization based on the buyer persona, the champion, like which products within the office of the CFO go together. It was something that typically wouldn't necessarily fit within finance, but it really does lead itself into the way that CFOs have changed. The expectation of CFOs has changed into becoming very strategic. And so we have all of these products, and we shifted ourselves to saying, this is our BU for our ERP reporting tools, right? And we're going to have business expertise over here on ERP reporting tools that are going to compete with ERPs. We've got a different wing that's going to be, this is just controllership. And so you're going to have CAOs, you're going to have controllers. Those are going to be your end users, your buyers. And so we want to put all the products that fit within here in this business unit. We've got a different wing that's going to be EPM, which is going to be our budgeting and planning tools. And so it's a significant change if you've never stood verticals up anywhere, but it was a very strategic decision that we made that was really exciting for a few reasons. But the primary one is that it really shines light on the fact that CFOs are now truly operating partners and thought leaders across the organization. And again, it might be unique here because we sell products where I understand what they are and I understand how they're utilized and I understand what questions get asked when you buy and what makes a great product a great product. But it was really kind of a transformational moment in my career that said the really good CFOs are going to be strategic thought leaders for the business outside of the G&A function.
And here we're going to make sure they understand that these offerings are designed especially for them, and you begin to go to market in that way as well. Is there a go to market organization in lockstep with you? I would imagine, yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you've got different marketing leaders within each BU. You've got sales leaders within each BU. It really took what was a very complex business that was really through a lot of acquisition. We did 31 acquisitions in 5 years, and it parsed it into much more manageable components where you've got GMs that are the CEOs of those business units. They wake up every day and they think about the success of those business units. And so it very much culturally, both internally and externally, changed the way that we think about our business.
All right. Well, thank you for that. We're going to jump to our mentoring round. We want you to, it wasn't too long ago, actually. You landed in the role, as we said, just last January.
Yeah.
But we're still wondering, again, you worked close with your predecessor, as you described for us. You had an early CFO mentor as well, who you gave lots of praise to. There must have been still something you didn't realize about the CFO role. As you get there, Josh, as a careful observer, what is it that maybe you would go back and tell yourself this last January or last December?
Yeah. Well, first off, I felt reasonably prepared, and I think that's about as good as you can ever do, is feel reasonably prepared, because you can ask all the right questions, you can have the greatest mentor in the world, and then kind of until you're in the seat, there are going to be things that you don't know or that you can't anticipate. I think the thing that was the most new or kind of foreign to me is that you really partner with the board a lot, particularly at private equity companies and likely anywhere else where you've got a quality board that's engaged, that a lot of your time goes away from thinking about the business and it goes towards thinking about the strategic nature of the overarching, total portfolio and consolidated organization. And so you partner a lot more with, of course, your executive team, but also with the board of directors, which was very new to me. Again, I've been presenting on board calls for many years. I've built relationships with board members, but it really changes the dynamics of how many hours of your work are being done kind of in the weeds. It's a perspective that is, I think you can only get when you're in the role. And it's one that if you could reflect back and say, okay, now I understand why my predecessor did this. And it's something that's quite a unique feeling to go, okay, I get it. Like, I get why he was grumpy that day, or I get the dynamics he was dealing with. So that's been quite a fascinating development, just in terms of it's something you only go through once. You go through that kind of shock of like, oh, I'm the CFO now and I'm on the hook for answering this. The other thing I would say is, when you work your way up the ladder, when I was the number 2 and I had a CFO, I could ask him questions about my job. He knew my job. And once you get into the CFO role, like, your CEO is overseeing all the executives. He's never been a CFO. And so you could potentially lose that person. Like, you no longer have a boss or a manager that understands exactly what you do, that can relate, that can provide guidance. It's now you, right? I'm fortunate I've got operating partners on the board I can ask questions to, but that's a very new feeling, because your entire career up until that point, you've got a boss who knows your job as well or better than you do, right? And that it's very unique to then pivot to having a boss who doesn't know tax and close and compliance and all the different things that we deal with within the office of the CFO.
Just great insight there for us. Thank you. Just thinking about your role and how you described it, you do have this kind of interesting moment in time that you've entered the CFO office, again, at least in our way of thinking, as we speak to so many CFOs who tell us, things are going to be very changing rapidly with the introduction of AI into business models and what have you. But you're a communicator, it's clear. You talk to us about those relationships with the board and the private equity executives. And so much of what we've talked to CFOs about often is how to, no surprises. What's the advice of dealing with a board? No surprises. You have to over communicate perhaps, but you're also, you must be spending time with the AI, the technology folks. So you must be spending time with customers more often too.
Mhm.
So this first 6 months of all the communication roles that you've had to, take on. And anyway, I'm just curious, do you think of yourself like that? Like, okay, I need to dedicate more time with this group, or next week I'm going to be spending time with customers. So it'll be good to educate and get educated.
Absolutely.
Can
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
a lot of
Look,
your communication knowledge? Yeah.
Yeah, a few things you said resonate. First off, like, yes, openness and transparency, specifically, with the board. I think there is a balance there of being able to understand, like, what is worthy of board attention and what is not worthy of board attention, right? Like, what is it just your job to be able to problem solve for and then come back with a resolution as opposed to presenting problems, right? We preach that internally. Don't present me a problem with a solution or a proposal, and then we can have that discussion. I think some of the lessons and things that I've gone through as it comes to communication, I like to very much, I envision myself as a storyteller, right? When you communicate to a CEO and to a board, you have to put yourself in their shoes, which is that our CEO has 10 other executives reporting to him, and he's got a lot of problems, and he's got a lot of things he's solving for, a lot of initiatives, a lot of priorities. The board has many different companies that they oversee, and so you always need to tell the story and remind them. Don't let them do the work. Don't let them have to do their own fact finding. Why are we here? What's the background that you need? What's critical about this conversation? What's the problem? What are the solutions? And then what's your recommendation? And it's very much a kind of a learned skill set. And my predecessor was amazing at storytelling. And when you use the term storytelling, it doesn't mean like making something up. It means like, what's the story and why are we here? And you can save a lot of time by being very good at storytelling, right? A lot of unnecessary meetings, of just being very clear and concise in that delivery. And that holds true internally, whether or not you're working cross-functionally, whether or not you're working upward. But the higher up you work, the more disengaged they're going to be with your business and your specific problem because they've got a lot of things on their plate. And so that's been one of the primary lessons learned in terms of communication.
One last sort of M&A related question, trying to understand this world of an acquisitive company. Where do these prospects how do they get on your radar? And I imagine it's board members. I imagine it's private equity executives. I imagine it's your FP&A team members who might have some ideas. I imagine it might be customers. But help us understand. The majority, I'll assume the majority come in through board members or private equity who say, have you heard about this company? We're thinking of investing in them. You should take a look at them. Mm-hmm. Rather than FP&A folks, or rather than customers.
Yeah. You're probably right with most companies, but we are very, very lucky at Insight Software because our senior vice president of corp dev is amazing at sourcing. Mm-hmm. So, and he has someone on his team, they do their own sourcing. He's been building relationships for years and years and years and having dinner, with CEOs that might sell 4 years from now and talking to bankers about who might come to market. So we do a significant amount of deals that are sole sourced. We buy companies that haven't run a process. They don't have a banker. There's no, bidding war, et cetera. And so we're very fortunate in that regard, but I think you're right. Generically speaking, that you will get a lot of leads from private equity firms and from your board and so on and so forth. We do get some of that, but he does a lot of the hard work on his own. It's a bit like, it's funny because you can be incredibly successful, and it's almost like going back to being a BDR and almost cold calling and reaching out and saying, hey, just want to learn a little bit about your business. He's very good at that. My guess would be at least half of our acquisitions have been sourced internally.
Were you in corporate dev in some of your earlier chapters? Did you ever get thrown in with the corp dev folks from time to time, or just curious now that looking over your resume?
Yeah. I mean, unofficially, we were at small companies that didn't have a separate corp dev team, but I did all of the buy side M&A, similar to what you would do within corp dev. And then, when I started here, I was very involved in all of the diligence that's involved, and we're very good at it now. We're always pretty good at it. We're very good at it now. But I've always been involved throughout my career.
So, Josh, we always like to ask our guests to reflect a little on the personal side for us. I think you're still up in Minneapolis today. Tell us something about yourself. And we heard you have rural roots, farm boy roots. Tell us something about yourself. What most people might not know about you.
Yeah. Well, first off, if I reflect back, I've got 2 young kids. I've got a 3-year-old. I've got a 1-year-old. It's all a lot, right? You take on a new job. You've got 2 young kids. I think the first thing, this isn't like a fun fact, but the first thing is just like an incredible degree of gratitude and fortune for being in the position I am. I think, there's a lot of people out there that struggle and that go through things financially and otherwise, and mental health and all these things, and just very fortunate to be in the position I'm in, and very grateful for the opportunity. I'm a small town boy. I'll always be a small town boy, even if I live in the city for the rest of my life. And I think that upbringing and the kind of blue collar nature of what comes with that is what shaped me. Just work hard and you can achieve whatever you want to. I don't know, on the personal side, there's not too much that's interesting. I like golf. I love Wisconsin sports, huge diehard Packer fan. I'm an owner of the Packers, although that's less impressive when you can just buy a piece of paper and call yourself an owner for $250. But yeah, that's my background. I'm just really grateful. But as far as my career goes, I want to go wherever I can get it to take me, and I just want to keep working hard and see what opportunities lie out in front of me.
All right. Well, thank you for that. We wonder if you have a book selection or recommendation. Maybe it's a resource of some kind. Anything that's influenced your thinking along the way?
Last 2 years, the only books I read are potty training books. So I don't have anything off the top of my head. I need to get back into reading books. I listened to the AI or Die podcast, and I've listened to a few AI podcasts here recently, but I haven't, I'll say it's a lack of time. I haven't been reading books.
Yeah, understandable. Yeah. So we are up to our final question, where we're going to ask you to look forward finally. And what we want to know are your priorities for the coming 12 months. What would those be?
Yeah, obviously AI, both in terms of internal adoption within the broader organization and the office of the CFO. I want to be a leading advocate for AI within our organization and say, here are the incredible things that we're getting out of it. And here are the efficiencies. Here's to your point about ROI. Here, I can calculate the amount of benefit that we're getting with it. And I want to make sure that on the spectrum of kind of laggard to leader, we're closer to the leading end of how we're utilizing AI. That's the first goal. The second goal is going to be, it's all about team satisfaction. Is the team taken care of? Do we have the right people? Do they feel engaged? Do they understand the value they're bringing to the table? Do they feel supported? Everything team. And quite frankly, that would be one above AI. So consider these in no specific order. And then the last thing is, how can the G&A team continue to enable our go-to-market leaders, enable the business to be better at selling? Because, I think the concept of G&A not being revenue generating is a bit misleading, because if in G&A we are able to improve the quoting process and the invoicing process and all of these things that enable our sellers, then in some ways we are, because it gives time back to the sellers. And so, we within G&A, as well as legal under the CFO at Insight Software, just need to reflect on how can we improve the quality of the business for our sellers and for our marketing team and for our support and professional service teams to really enable elite execution.
Josh Schauer, thanks for making time for us at CFO Thought Leader.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Jack. Appreciate the opportunity.